Graham, hey, congratulations for
Oh,
being
thank you.
part of that Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Well, so I mean, I was totally blown away myself because I didn't get to the additional photography because of the travel ban. So, I started the movie in 2019, November of 2019. Then we got to March 20 and we had a different director and the whole world shut down. So it was kind of weird for everyone and everything and the process and Marvel's kind of scheduling, when are people going to be able to go back to work? Will they ever be able to go back to theaters again? I mean, there was a point when no one knew, right, what was actually, and we were in production, we'd started in production and then had to stop like a lot of movies did. And then, but thank you. Yeah. So when I went to the premiere in May, it was just like, oh my God, it's like, sometimes you don't recognize that was the movie you worked on.
Mhm.
It's like, because I did see one edit like, a few months before that, but they had so many things they had to move around, with the Spider-Man 3, Spider-Man No Way Home was supposed to come out after Multiverse. And then with COVID schedule, it then came out before. So Doctor Strange in his new costume and America Chavez was supposed to go into Spider-Man, and Spider-Man was supposed to come into for a very brief cameo appearance into Multiverse, and then COVID just shook it all up. And anyway, the result was absolutely amazing. I mean, thank you. I was really thrilled with the way everything looked and just everything about it.
Let me ask you this, because you were at the premiere of the film, and they had, I believe they had your costumes on
Yeah,
display.
yeah, they
When
did.
when you design these costumes and you see it on the screen, do you see two different things, or it completely manifests itself like what you imagined?
Um, yeah, that everything was as I imagined, and yeah, I mean the Marvel warehouse people who have like a massive amount of stock now for the last sort of 12 years. Everything is just in one big store in LA, and they do amazing work on put it like the display at El Capitan was really beautifully done, and nice for people that could see that and see things so close up in detail, because yeah, I knew it was going to be shot in IMAX, and I knew eventually the Blu-ray 4K was going to kind of turn up one day, but you don't focus on that at the time. You just try and you think the world's watching. You have to. I kind of, when you're making things, particularly in this sort of genre, you think, are people going to cosplay this? Because I want them to feel like they want to. So it was something else. When I went to the premiere, I was on the red carpet. There was already people dressed as Captain Carter, Captain Britain, we called her back then. And there were just a lot of cosplayers already having taken the trailer apart and just gone crazy and upgraded their cosplay costumes into the new look. So that was a thrill to see all of that too. But yeah.
So for you, when you see cosplayers actually mimic your costumes, that gives you a sense of pride.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
It's a flattery.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that they love it so much that they'll want to cosplay it. Yeah, exactly.
Now, with Doctor Strange being part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and part of the comic book series themselves, it has such a rich history. When you're
Yeah.
designing costumes for a new movie like this, does the rich history make it easier to come up with the designs?
Yeah, here's the thing. And I've worked on a number of sequels. I always say they're harder than creating something from scratch, because I think it's more difficult to deal with sequels because of various things. But with Marvel, you have to kind of listen to the studio because they are then decide where characters are going next. I mean, we made that costume for Charlize Theron as Clea, and I have no idea where she's going next. I just knew that she was a warrior from the dark dimension. Yeah, and she's related to Dormammu. So we took all those influences from the comics and tried to create something with new casting that, you know, kind of the thing that's the sort of the difficult part of it is that not that you run out of money usually, but you run out of time. And the problem with having new cast coming in is just like, well, when are they going to get confirmed? And then that deadline gets closer and closer, because these things have to be built so specifically for the person that you need time with those actors to make it work. So it was amazing that we had, you know, Chiwetel and Rachel McAdams and Benedict and Benny Wong and Lizzie Olsen coming back. And of course, I didn't design the costumes on Doctor Strange. I didn't even work on it. But that was my 6th Marvel movie. So I knew everyone in Marvel from First Avenger. So I worked on First Avenger, then Dark World, then Guardians, then Ultron, and then something else, and then Spider-Man Far From Home. So I was just part of their kind of, you know, they knew me, I was part of their family. So when I said, can I design the next movie that's coming to London? Well, obviously Sammy Sheldon did Ant-Man, but yeah, Eric Carroll put me forward to design this one, and I'm so happy and thrilled that it happened. So I don't know if that was any part of the question that you asked, but it was something to do with the whole, yeah, of course, like when it came to Captain Britain, because I'd made with a great workshop, the Chris Evans first outing, and then some years later, we remade the costume for Chris with Alex Byrne designing on Ultron. So I knew the Captain America costume. And so although when we started What If, we knew Ryan Meinerding did some amazing illustrations rather for What If. And so we knew kind of that Captain Carter, Captain Britain, as we called her, wasn't this big hulking guy in a spandex suit, but it was going to be Peggy Carter in this kind of what if she became the super soldier. So yeah, having a knowledge of not just the films, but everything that was being made on other Marvel movies certainly, you know, helped enormously. And then you just have to rely on the director and what the script demands. So Kamatage, all the background got redesigned because it was no longer this kind of serene Zen temple where people were drinking tea and reading books about being a sorcerer. I know there was a lot of trouble with Caecilius and stuff like that, but basically it had a different kind of vibe to begin with in this sort of reclusive temple. But we meet Kamatage where it's under threat. So Sam wanted this idea that there were regiments of soldiers and all the students had armored costumes, that you had the archers on the roof and then artillery firing those cannons, and then another group of infantry that were the shield bearers. So everyone had a sort of specific role and a specific costume, like it was a regiment, you know, like a armed service regiment. So that was really...
Obviously, I mean, there's a lot of really rich and great costumes in this film. Let me ask a specific costume question. America's costume. You folks always wanted to do the denim jacket. You talk about that denim jacket and the American flag rather than the fabric. Why the choice of painting it on there?
Yeah. I guess because it had to be distressed, like she'd been through the multiversal travel, just wearing that same jacket for some time. And yeah, you know, various fashion designers have been down the road of taking the flag. Hilfiger and Ralph Lauren and people have done a million things before by reinterpreting the flag into a costume. But what I was trying to suggest was that America probably did that work herself when she was at one point in one script, she was like in an orphanage, you know, because her two moms didn't make it. And just that idea of an emo with a bit of angst and a kind of Sharpie or some other materials might then just start creating their own jacket rather than something that was just a sort of store-bought thing. So that's kind of what it was supposed to suggest. And it's got all the poetry and the slogans, they're all Spanish, and so there's Mexican Day of the Dead references and Portuguese witchcraft, all very subtly in the background, but there, if you could get that close to them to read it, but it just becomes a sort of a texture to something that's sort of, you know, Levi jackets, one of the most iconic pieces of, you know, American culture. So it just seemed the right thing to do, and the subtlety of launching America Chavez into the MCU with something that wasn't so provocative like you see in the comics later on. She's, you know, she's quite adult when she's kickboxing, and do you know what I mean? It had to kind of respect the fact that she was 14, and we needed to kind of preserve that, her character, in something that wasn't provocative.
and one last thing, I'm curious. There's a few Doctor Strange costumes in this film. Which one was the most challenging one for you?
The one we had to make at very last notice because of the script changes. You know that so the 616. So he'd been wearing that disciple costume from Doctor Strange all the way through to Endgame. And then he wore it again in Spider-Man No Way Home. Yeah. Sorry. So the studio, Kevin, wanted him, you know, from the get-go when I came on, it was just like, we need to upgrade him because he doesn't have a master's costume yet. That was one of the things. Sorry, I've lost the thread of your...
I was saying, which one was the most challenging?
Which one was the most challenging? I'm going to say the 616 because it has so much more detail in. I mean, the amount of embroidery and hundreds of sectional pieces that go up to making that tunic. And I wanted to make him, because obviously he'd gone through Endgame and become a superhero from this camouflage kind of disciple, that his costume now should have kind of more shoulder definition and the waist be more defined, and it just be much more of a tailored garment, but still keeping all those things that Scott Derrickson and Alex Byrne kind of created on Doctor Strange, but just taking it forward. So it was slightly less skirted and more tailored and more of a superhero costume. And then the cuffs, there were many discussions about that, and with Kevin and Vizdev and Sam, and we moved those up to a kind of a leather cuff just to make it more of a sort of warrior feel to it rather than having a sort of soft fabric there. So he has some sort of strength at on those wrist guards. And then there's the cloak. The cloak never changed. Cloak's a personality and a living thing, and we remade quite a number of those, and they are extraordinarily complicated to make, believe it or not. So that was the most challenging costumes. The other ones were just fun. The Defender costume, and then that turns into Zombie Strange, as we called him at the time. I mean, that was just a lot of fun with Barry Gower's makeup, creating that sort of the idea that sort of accelerated decomposition had rotted through his costume. That was fun. Sinister Strange. The Sinister Strange was in fact the disciple costume, but a bit like Scarlet Witch, to mirror what happened to her from WandaVision, where this the Darkhold, those two people holding the Darkhold in their universes, have been corrupted by it, and that's why her costume kind of has that transition of like this multiversal mold. It's not just a sleeve, it's supposed to represent that the whole Darkhold is then corroding the costume, and the crown is now kind of pitted and textured.
Wow. So much detail, so much work. Graham, we really appreciate you speaking to us about these costumes.
Oh,
If I had another hour, I would totally.
oh, we did. Yeah, we didn't even touch the Illuminati, you know. And when we came back after COVID, we had that. We thought we knew what we were doing, and just like, yeah, we're now doing the Illuminati, and it's just like, what? How many superheroes is that now? It was like another whole movie by itself. It was so much work.
Well, we'll just have to catch everything on your on the Blu-ray. Thank
Yeah,
you very
absolutely.
much, Graham,
Gig,
for speaking to us. Thank you.
gig, pleasure to meet you. Thank you.